Welcome to yet another edition of Storyblok Community Chats. This time, I would not say this is something that we have been waiting for, for so much of time. But here's the thing: I think this is the topic I always had in my mind, but never thought of bringing it as a topic for the live stream. Actually, when it comes to topics like burnout, all these things, we always have so many thoughts about it. We end up having conversations around it with our close friends, with our family, but at the same time, we are like always a bit hesitant to talk about it. So I'll be completely honest. I never had this topic up in my mind to bring it on a live stream because it's kind of not always up in your mind as a priority because there's like so much to talk about. There's so much happening in this world, so much happening in the community space, our life, our professional career, and just the list goes on and on. But having said that, because it is Storyblok Community Chats, and the idea was to bring up the topics which are definitely something that needs attention, but also at the same time kind of gets neglected, and that is why we are here. And I think I have a very special guest for this particular one, and she's the person I think I've had many conversations with in the past around kind of similar topics, and I personally have gained a lot of insights and learnings. So without wasting any further moments, let me quickly invite our guest for today's live stream, who is none other than Vishwa Mehta. Hello, welcome.
Hey there, thanks for having me. Hey everyone from chat.
All good. Thank you so much for joining in. I think when I was mentioning about this, I still remember having this conversation with you where we were just thinking about topics, and you came up with it, and I think that was out of the box for me because, again, as I mentioned, these are the kinds of topic that we usually tend to ignore when it comes to having live streams on or talking about in general in public. It's just like so much of personal for many reasons for many people out there, and it's like hard to talk about. But I'm glad that you proposed this idea, and here we are. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when you mentioned that we wanted to do this together, there were so many ideas that were circulatory, like just in my head, but nothing popped out as much as this one. And even I was surprised because it's also something that I haven't been too vocal about with anyone else, let alone publicly. So I'm glad that this could be a platform where we can share our experiences and just talk about it candidly.
Absolutely, and I'm looking forward to all the conversations that we're gonna have. Uh, a warm welcome to everyone in the chat. Thank you so much for dropping in those highs, heys, hellos. Keep that coming. Let us know where you all are joining in from. I'm sure the conversation is going to be super insightful for most of us. If you have any questions, you're more than welcome to drop them in the chat and would love to pick them up. Uh, I think also, having said that, we are already in December, mid December, and this is also going to be the last episode of Community Chats for this year. For this year, I repeat, we have so much in the store for everyone for 2024. But if you have any ideas for that, feel free to shoot in the chat once again. Uh, and yeah, thanks for joining is something I always say, and it really means a lot to us when you take out the time, let's say from your weekdays and weekends, and join us for this one. Uh, Enough of me saying. I think it's time to put the line highlight on the Vishwa, our speaker for the live stream. And when it comes to burnout, the title we have kept it is "Rise Above Burnout" because we are here to rise. And it's kind of a pressing issue in today's fast-paced world, I would say, because there's just so much going on. And in these hours of distress, I think it's important for us to navigate it the right way, to understand what really matters for us, maintaining that work life balance, fostering that resilience, and just prioritizing our self care. All of these small little things which we tend to forget, right? So, even before jumping onto that, let's start from a quick introduction from your side, Vishwa. Maybe a little bit about your background, your experience, especially regarding dealing with burnout and promoting well being.
Yeah, sure. Just a quick disclaimer that I am the worst when it comes to giving self introductions, but I try my best, and I'll also try to be quick because I rather have questions and then answer that, and then just like introduce myself and like some of my background through the conversations that we have further on, to dig deeper. But maybe some surface level stuff for the audience to get to know me a little if we haven't connected yet. So, hi, I'm Vishwa Mehta. You can call me Vish, and I'm Vishwa Mehta 30 on Twitter. So, feel free to connect with me there. I I think I'm not sure if this is the best way to go, but I have been keeping account, and I think it's soon going to be 4 years in tech that I've been working as a developer relations professional, mostly as a developer advocate, and it has been a rocky journey. Something that I've been super grateful about, but also which is why, like one of the reasons why the topic of burnout really is personal to me, is what I can say, and is one of the more difficult topics to talk about vocally and honestly, because there's so much to unfold, so many of my own insecurities, so many of the harder, bitter learnings from that as well. So yeah, but I've been working in the DevRel space full time for like a little shy from 4 years now. And I'm currently a developer advocate at Ethereum Foundation on the Solidity team. And I also work on Proof of Word on the side, which is a collective, a writers collective, or a boutique content studio, if you may, that me and my friends started, because we kind of realize that we're all passionate about written or all kinds of content in general, in the tech space, and it's something that we could really contribute to in the space, just to make sure that we're helping a lot of young teams um, get really successful with their content strategy and their communication and stuff like that. I think that is mostly about me and the background. In terms of work, there's a lot more interesting things that I can tell you about myself in terms of like hobbies and interests, and what I like to do in my in the rest of the time when I'm not doing DevRel stuff. And that also becomes important because I think we're going to talk a lot about self care. We're going to talk a lot about how important hobbies can be, how important non work things can be. So, whenever I introduce myself, I like to include some of the non work things as well. So, I love writing, I love reading as well, but especially poetry. And I don't know, I just love to learn something new, especially if it's like on the creative side. So, that's me. There you have it, the whole spectrum.
I think I think you did a great job in introducing yourself. Like I can't like know more about with what you already mentioned. It is like a great summary which you delivered. But yeah, thank you so much for doing that. And for like even I got connected with you with one of the community events. I think 2018-19, and that's how I got to know. It was more recently that. We were meeting at a lot of events and we've been working together at some projects of ours. But yeah, it has been an incredible journey knowing you as a person, when it comes to you sharing insights, especially topics like these, and around your development journey. I think that has been phenomenal. So yeah, thanks once again for sharing all of these things. Coming to the topic of the day, burnout. So I mean, like, people do consider this terminology, I would like to say it as in varied ways. But when it comes to understanding its core, of course, it's not something that I would like to have research on, but at the same time, having basic knowledge about it, what it is, because many times people do go through burnout and they do not realize that they are, in that phase. How would you go around and define burnout, or what are some common signs that any individual should be aware of, let's say in their personal or professional lives?
That's actually a great question to just sort of set the primer for this whole conversation. As I said, it's going to, like, one of the reasons why I said that it's going to be a little um, difficult having this conversation itself is because burnout can be so personal. and it can be so, like, it can look so different for a lot of people. So if you ask about my experience, it yeah, there are certain signs that can be very similar, but it can be so different how it impacts me, how it affects me. It's kind of a journey in itself, realizing that you're on the brink of burnout or you are already burnt out. um, and it's kind of like a, I don't know. I say journey because there's so many different layers of it. I don't even fully remember when exactly I registered in my brain that I was beginning to burn out, like burn myself out, or or if it was much later on that I realized that I was burnt out, and then it was kind of reactive instead of, just like being proactive about it. But I guess I want to start, like, before I answer your question about what burnout is, in my language, like how I can define it, and then some of the signs. I think I want to like set this sort of background for the entire live stream for the audience and the listeners, that this is going to be a very personal experience. Like everything that I talk about, I'm not an expert on this, I'm not a professional, so I definitely don't encourage anyone to seek advice from me in the sense that, on, or maybe on a professional level or something like that. If you already know that you're experiencing something, and you've already, you're well aware, then I would rather say, seek professional help. Talk to someone that you can really really trust. But what this whole conversation is going to be about is just to start learning and being aware, like that awareness journey, that something like this happens to people and it's completely normal. Because talking about depression, talking about burnout, talking about self-care, mental health, work-life balance, all of this has been such a huge taboo in tech for the longest time ever. And when I actually first started my journey in tech, I actually didn't know anything about burnout. I didn't know any, like any signs, any symptoms, how it impacts you, how to get out of it, how to recover from it, or stuff like that. Because I think it was a combination of lack of resources, but also lack of conversations like these that happen publicly, very, very honestly, from people that were in the same, circles as me, or doing the same kind of work as me. Because it didn't, if we kind of start having conversations like this, it then doesn't seem too far off. It feels like we can relate because I know you. And if you're talking about something and if you're sharing your own experience, then I feel closer to you and I feel more inclined to then research in my own time, try to spend more time thinking about, what I am struggling with and what I'm experiencing. And so I hope that this conversation is that for the listeners and the audience. I when I was first starting to think more actively about burnout myself from my experience, it only started because of a similar session. I think it was a talk by Ashley Willis. She's an amazing person, but also an amazing professional that I personally look up to as well. I think she's a senior, the director of DevRel at GitHub now, and she was previously with Google and Microsoft. And so, coming from someone like her, like in our head, we would be like, "Oh, she's so awesome! She's a rock star DevRel. She's been giving so many amazing talks and writing so many blog posts." But then, hearing her honestly talk about her experience of burning out, you sort of feel okay and normal that if it can happen to someone like her, of her caliber, then it can happen to anybody. And I just hope that, we can kickstart this conversation with that in our mind, that this can be an open and honest dialogue about what I've gone through, and what I didn't know back then. And maybe somebody can get to learn something from here. That's my best hope. Um, but I do not want to digress. And coming back to your question, I think how I would define burnout, there's this really clear picture in my head that I remember from my time, just like learning about burnout and just researching a lot and stuff like that. There's this image on Google, it's very popular on the topic of burnout. There's like a matchstick. So when it's burning, it's sort of like, starts the light and the fire sort of starts waning, like getting weaker and weaker, and then in the end, when there's no light, the matchstick, when it's not lit, all is left is that black mass, like of the carbon, and then in the very end, when the matchstick has been burnt off completely, it just falls off, like it breaks and it falls off. And in my head, that's a really great graphical representation of what burnout, felt like for me, from my personal experience. So I think that's how I would define it. Just starting off with a lot of enthusiasm and excitement about what you do, and then that sort of, you know, um, fading away or getting weaker or losing motivation, losing a lot of your strength or energy, whether it be physical, mental, emotional, so many capacities that you feel like in a normal function, you're just really great at it. But then slowly you start to feel like you don't want to do something. Like a good sign is canceling on plans, or not feeling like waking up one day, and not feeling like you want to work that day for no reason at all, not feeling motivated about a certain project, procrastinating a lot, um, pushing or stalling on working, or like really pushing deadlines. That's something that I really experienced when I was starting to, really feel being burnt out. And this is not to say that I was not doing exciting work, or the job that I was doing was not exciting, right? Because it was my dream role. It was something that I worked really hard for and waited for a long time. But then all of a sudden, I don't know, I just started feeling like I couldn't get myself to wake up every day and take myself to job, or like work every day and then be productive. So I think those are the very telltale signs of, some of the very telltale signs of the beginning of burnout, or being in the middle of burnout, I would say. I hope that answers your
Yeah,
question, but we can dig deeper later on.
I mean, totally. I think when you were pointing out those signs, I mean, I've experienced them all, honestly. Uh, I've been there. I think, of course, I always, whenever I feel like this, for example, things like procrastinating, or just avoiding some things, or canceling plans, or just not having that mindset of talking with people, or just being in your own space, or giving yourself that time. I always try to have this thing that no, I'm not in a burnout. This is just a just for a while. But eventually I do think that okay, I definitely need to give myself that time and space where I can come out of this. So yeah, I think these are like great signs. Also, I feel when you mentioned the other point, that it's not that you weren't doing something exciting, or you weren't doing anything that you do not love to do. I think that is like the major, how do I say, a point where you can realize, okay, this is where you are in, because it has been always the case with me. Like whatever I'm doing, I love doing that, but still there's a gap. Still there's a sense of negotiation from my side that I'm not feeling good, even though that thing which I'm trying to do is something I love doing. I do that on a daily basis. I prefer to do when I am given a chance to, all these things. But yeah, I think that's a great separation of understanding how different burnout could be, because many a times it's just that you're not willing to do, you're just tired, you're feeling lazy. But that is like, there's a fine difference between being lazy and being lazy for the work you love doing, and being ignorant for the work you love doing, like both those things. But yeah, I think well put it. I feel those are great signs. For everyone in the chat, if you think that there's another sign which you might have encountered, feel free to drop that in the chat as well, and would love to know and understand how. different ways it could happen, and maybe we can understand if that's the actual sign. But yeah, moving on, you mentioned about your work, and of course, when it comes to work, there's always a balance which we call it as a work-life balance, because of course we do our job on a day-to-day basis, and because we love doing that, we do that for building our career, for our family, just because we love doing that, and so many other reasons. But at the same time, it's not everything, in our life. It's also about our personal time, about our friends, about our families, about our health, about our hygiene, with the kind of mental space we give ourselves, and all these other things. Maintaining that balance, that too in a healthy way, is very crucial.
Yeah.
So, what are those important tips that you personally follow, or you would like to just suggest to the individuals out there?
So many. I know where to start.
I mean, to start with.
um, I think to talk about the things that kind of help you create a work life balance is also important to talk about things that went really, really wrong and is um, one of the reason or like are one of the many reasons that leads to burnout that I didn't I like I made the mistake of ignoring or not knowing about or not being aware of in the beginning of my career. And I think this happens to a lot of young people who are fresh off in their career, who've just landed their first job, and are new to being, like a professional full-time employee working at their dream company or with their dream team on something that they're super excited about, is that you never set boundaries. You never learn to say no to things. And I think that's completely fair. I don't think I would have been where I am right now. Um, and I'm pretty satisfied with some of the things that I worked on, the projects I've worked on in the companies with all of these amazing teams. I've met so many amazing people that I've learned so much from. So I'm pretty satisfied at the kind of point I am at in life. And for me to say that I wouldn't be at this point if I wouldn't have, or if I had known better, um, is a big thing. Like if I'd said no, I had said no to a lot of things back then. I don't think that would have created that kind of like learning curve for myself. But then the sad part about it is that it shouldn't, for a lot of young people, it shouldn't come at the expense of that, right? Like it shouldn't come at the expense of me not knowing my boundaries as a fresher, me not knowing how to say no or when to say no to things. I did learn a great deal from working on a lot of different set of problems, but I just wish that it didn't create that kind of impact, or didn't have so many other side effects that led to burnout. So I think one of the biggest reasons that lead to burnout, like one of the biggest factors, is not saying no to things, not setting boundaries or knowing your own boundaries. And then that's also on the flip side. If you know how to do that, I think that kind of leads to a good work life balance. Having, as I mentioned, having some of the things that can be considered as no work hobbies, no work interests. So like, and this is also something that came from Ashley's talk. So I highly encourage everyone to go listen to Ashley's talk after this as well, if you want to, like dive deeper and get some more expert insights. But I learned a lot from that, and I think Ashley mentions in her talk that you have to build a life outside of work. um, so like maintaining a good work life balance, I would say, is the key aspect of that. Is, at least for me, it worked out, um, is not tying your entire identity to work or your entire self-worth to work. As a fresher, in my first job, I think whatever mattered to me was everything that went well at work. If I was successful at work, I'm the best person, I'm a champion, right? I'm a rock star. But if something went wrong, even the smallest of things, this sort of like crushing self doubt would creep in, and then I would question everything, and I would feel really low, or I would like reach that low point in life, in my personal life as well, in general. And that shouldn't happen. I think it's great if we can be lucky enough that we get to work on things that we're really passionate about and get paid for it. So that's amazing. But I'm not a believer that that's the only thing that you should be passionate about. You should be able to ship code and then, I don't know, go surfing on the weekends and be really, really passionate about surfing instead, and not just coding, right? You should be able to be an amazing graphic designer but also really love painting, and maybe just spend your entire weekend um, taking classes for painting and stuff like that. So I think what really worked out for me is finding those touch points in my personal life, and my social life as well. I would take some of these classes, these hobby classes with my friends as well. And that was a great bonding experience. Another very important thing in maintaining a work life balance: go out, touch grass, meet people, not from work necessarily. And yeah, just know that these are the interests that you have outside of your work life or your professional life, um, because it's very important to maintain those kind of personas whenever necessary. Like at work, I need to be professional, and my boss needs me to be productive and needs me to be, like me, a developer advocate at work, and that's completely fine. I'm not asking you folks to slack at work or be lazy. Deliver everything you can, but not more than that. Let's not overschedule. Let's not go out of our way to say yes to things that we don't think we can take on our plate. And that's something that can be really tricky and difficult to do as a fresher, because you are so excited to get that exposure. You're so excited to get that experience that can then bring you closer and closer to the long term plan. But trust me, I promise it's going to work out even if you learn how to take care of yourself in those first few years that I should have.
Yeah, I mean, like, also about the boundary thing, I totally agree. I think in my case personally, when I share, it's more about the communication that I've been able to set up with my work colleagues. Uh, and I really love this fact about my team is that how transparent we are with respect to our, you know, life, and how well we want to take it, considering the work we do on a daily basis, because it's just like so much happening. Uh, but at the same time, it becomes quite important as an individual. Let's say if I talk about my case, that I set those priorities, uh, of course the work is always going to be there. There will always be deadlines. There will always be those weekend plans that you might have. You'll always have the family to talk to. You'll always have plans made up with your friends out there. But what is more important for you as an individual? What is something that you really want to do? How are you gonna take it ahead? Everyone have their own ways of taking it, but when it comes to an individual level, I think what worked for me is to understand, okay, how much time am I gonna allocate for each and everything? If I'm talking about it as a week, on a week basis, okay, I'm gonna set weekdays just for work. And even if in those days I can give one day where I just go out of my home or my usual work setup, I work from a cafe or something, or I just go out and socialize a little. And on weekends I can prefer to spend time with my family. Let's say if you have pets, I think that's a great way to break from those worlds. You can have some quality time with your pets. You can just go out, have a long drive, and there's just so much more. It totally again depends upon you as an individual, what's something that you love doing and you do not need extra efforts to be put it in for that. And I think that really helps us balancing that. And as I mentioned earlier itself, the communication part, Vishwa mentioned about setting your boundaries. I think those few things are like something that can be a game changer. Awesome. But yeah, moving on. And when I say moving on, that's where my next point is also gonna be that whatever happens, let's say in our lives, in any individual's life out there, the world moves on. The time doesn't stop, and everyone keeps on going. No one is gonna stop. Uh, and at the same time, you yourself are stuck in that loop. But that is something that brings me to my next question. And we all know that we have been there, which I mentioned all these signs that we can understand it from. But when it comes to having that, how do I say that, resilience, uh, like all in all these situations, the challenges, all this kind of situation of stress, what strategies can all of us employ to build that resilience, or maybe a bounce back, I would say, from all these setbacks, because no one is gonna wait for us. But we need to take our own time. We need to have that trust in us that we can come back. uh, how do you deal with that? How do you deal with coming back, or I should say coming back stronger?
Yeah, that's actually a great question and a really important one as well, because we've talked about what burnout can look like. We talked briefly about some of the reasons that lead to it, and then also talked about work-life balance and maintaining it can really help with it. But nobody really talks about the recovery phase, and they don't, because not a lot of people are talking about their personal experiences. And I think, or at least not in my circle, I didn't hear a lot of people talking about burnout, because I personally felt so guilty of it, of going through something like this, when I was dealing with it, and I never spoke about it. I never spoke to my peers about it. I never spoke to my friends about it, because in my head, for some reason, I still failed, and that fear of failing at something, um, especially the fear of failing at like something in a professional capacity, like productivity or being motivated at work and having great ideas and problems that you want to work on. I really felt like I was failing at something. And I didn't realize that it was okay. Like, it was still in a very natural progression of things that this was happening, because I didn't take care of myself when I should have. And this was evident. It wasn't a flaw, it was just a side effect of things and situations and circumstances, especially the pandemic. I completely forgot to mention a very important detail, that this was during the pandemic, and post pandemic, it actually made it even worse. Um, because we all had no idea about, like, we stopped going outside. It was not safe to go outside. It was, we were social distancing, so it's not like we could, pursue a lot of our hobbies or our interests, or go meet friends and play board games with them. And so everyone resorted to this one thing that they knew, at least in tech, right? Their laptops and their works, like their day jobs. So everyone resorted to punching code or writing blog posts and, like giving online talks and stuff like that. And I was really burning myself out. I was really, I think I ran out of distractions, because how many times can you actually watch Netflix? That's actually, I would say, please don't do that. If you want to look for a distraction, step out of your home and find something in the nature, instead of finding that in a Netflix documentary, or I don't know. But yeah, and social media sort of like played a huge role in sort of remedying it. It aggravated what I was going through, because I saw people, or their image of what they were trying to convey or show on social media, and I was like, how are these people so normal, right? How are these people going about their lives so well, while I'm here not having a clue, not trying to be like not being able to be productive, not being motivated at all. So like that image of people being productive on social media, and like, I don't know, writing something or working on something or shipping new features, um, that really confused me even more. That sort of like, I don't know, it didn't help. And so the post pandemic cycle of my burnout was really the worst time that I've ever, faced in my life. I think it was my lowest point because I didn't know where to escape. I couldn't get out of my home. I couldn't see friends. Um, so like that resilience was not even a word that I could think of back then. And so what I really knew that I'm really proud of is I wanted to make it okay for me. Like, I wanted to normalize staying in bed one day if I didn't feel like it. And I wanted to normalize communicating that with, my team and to my manager, that I really love what I'm doing, but it doesn't look like I'm proud of the work that I'm putting out right now. And so it's a bad cycle of, guilting myself for not doing work. And then because of that crushing guilt, not being motivated anymore. So I think a lot of my resilience came with normalizing it and talking about it to people who were relevant stakeholders in that situation, right? If I had deadlines, if someone was waiting on my work, then I think I tried to communicate that this is not working out for me for some reason and I'm trying to figure it out, but I appreciate you being patient with me. um, and so and that's kind of my hope for, and I keep saying young people because it is so easy for young people, for everybody in general, but so easy for young people early on in their careers to burn themselves out because they are so excited about their jobs and they want to do everything all at once and say yes to so many things, to get that promotion, to get that bag, to, fulfill all of their ambitions and, strike off all of the goals from the quarterly goals list and stuff like that. And hitting those metrics are nice, but not, again, not at the expense of your own well-being and mental health. So I think that was my personal experience, normalizing it and just trying to learn more about it as well. Like, as I mentioned, I didn't know a lot about it, and so at least something that I'm proud of was that instead of denying the fact that something was terribly wrong, um, I sort of tried to sit with myself, like sit in an uncomfortable position and then figure out what was going through my head back then, and then just try to figure it out. Read a lot of, I did read up on it a lot. I did listen to a lot of talks. Also, at some point when I was comfortable, I talked to a few experts, one professional as well, to seek some help, because I did, as you said, it's not the kind of like, time is not the luxury that everyone has. It's not like I could go on a 6 months sabbatical and all of my life's worries will go away and I can recover magically and then come back to work and everybody would be ready to welcome me. It's, yeah, that's not the luxury I had, and that's not a luxury a lot of us can have. And so really making sure that I come out of it, at least not fully recovered, but in a place where I can still actively work on it, but then sort of also compartmentalize that with the work that I wanted to deliver to stay afloat while I can actually realistically take a break from work. But yeah, that did pan out well for me, and it it takes a lot of time, and not a lot of people actually realize that burnout is not something that just goes away. It's something that you have to actively work on. I still feel burnt out on some days, like terribly, like I still feel like I don't have the mental or emotional capacity to do something, sometimes even physical. I just feel tired and feel sleepy all day when I have like a whole day of meetings and tasks, like really important ones that I have to do. And that feeling is not a comfortable feeling, knowing that you want to be productive, you're wanted or needed somewhere, and you have deadlines, but then you're like incapacitated by something that's wrong, right? That you just have to fix, and it takes time. um, so I guess, coming back to resilience, what resilience could then also look like for a lot of people is, don't try to assuage something or like save something after it's done. Like, try to understand that this could happen to anyone, to me, to Sid, to any of you watching. If you don't set your boundaries, if you don't take care of yourself, if your calendar is always looking overbooked, if you always have 10 different things that you're switching contexts between, but you don't have the bandwidth for that, this could very well be something that you will yourself bring closer to the brink for yourself, right? And I would say, instead of that being reactive and as an aftermath of something that has already happened and it's too late, I would say resilience is something that you can build up over time for yourself. So try to take it as something that's proactive for you. So learning what really creates a separation for yourself from your professional life and your personal life. Create that separation from now on, like from right now. If someone asks you who you are, and which is why I pointed it out in my introduction as well, if someone asks you, could you introduce yourself? Hi, nice to meet you. Who are you? And what do you do? I would be so proud if at least some of you would introduce yourself, not starting with what you do at work, but starting with, hi, I'm Vishwa, and I love reading books in my own time, and I love doing creative things. I've just been learning or like taking piano classes, and then start from there. Oh, but then also, I work in tech, and that's also something that I'm really grateful for, like a job that I can be excited about. And I do developer advocacy here, here, here. And I think that's a great example of who you should sort of identify yourself as. Like, you're a human being with different sets of responsibilities and different interests, and one of your interests can be in tech, but then it's also perfectly normal to have many more outside of your job. And so, like, that kind of resilience is built over time and not only after you've started feeling burnt out, is what I would say.
I think for me that came in too personal because I've been there. Honestly, uh, like it's a long process. I would say it's not something that will happen overnight. Uh, I've been in a phase where honestly I was in a state of denial that everything is fine, everything is good, nothing's wrong. It's just the matter of, let's say, I'm lazy, or I just don't want to do it, or I'm not feeling well. All these things, or it's not just my day. All these varied reasons that I used to give to myself. It was over time that I gave it an opportunity to rethink. Uh, you know, to understand, no, it's a real thing for sure. And of course there are ways to come out of it. It's easy, it's simple. You just need to give yourself that space and time, and have that acceptance, and it's all right, and it's very common. Everyone goes through that. I think you having that kind of a mindset is really very important in these stages, because many times when we feel like, okay, we are low, that we are not up to the mark, we start moving ourselves in a zone of negativity that is not at all required. It's something that we burden ourselves with for no reason, I think, and it's not at all required. Whereas on the other side, the world thinks that you're the best. You're doing it all so well. You're putting in so much efforts, but deep down we know that we are the worst, or we think that we have that bubble of ours, which is not allowing ourselves, because it's all on us at the end of the day. So having that shift in mindset of understanding that it's all right is equally very important, and it can be the first step, because it should be considered as something normal. Just like we feel happy, just like we feel motivated, we might feel burned out as well. And it is all because of the way we work, the way we set our day to day schedule as, or on many other factors which I think we already talked about. So for me, the first step has always been acceptance, that start understand that it's all right, and you have been in a situation that you have been doing so much, and it is just result of that. Now, the next step would be, of course, to identifying where the problem was. Is it that I'm working too much, I am being awake all nights, or I'm having too many calls, I'm having too much of socialization, I'm not spending good enough of time in the open air, not touching the grass, not going out occasionally. What's the core reason? Why is that happening? Experimenting, trying it out, and then understanding, okay, where the thing went wrong, and then focusing on that. I think giving yourself that time and understanding that it's all right is something which has personally worked for me, and have helped me come back stronger, and confident as well, I would say, because now that I've already been there, I know that if something happens again, I'm well prepared and I know what to do, all these things. And then you just take it as a part of the journey, or as just another thing that happened with you, not something extraordinary, not something you create a hype for just for yourself in a negative way. So I think all these things really helps personally for me as well. And I think all your points, Vishwa, added a lot more sense to having that resilience while being coming out of that burnout stage. Awesome. Lots of interesting conversation going on. Everyone in the chat, thanks for sticking with us so far. I would just like to take this time to bring in questions. If you have, feel free to drop in any questions that you might have. Let it be the silliest one. We are more than happy if we could help you answer those. It's a no judgment live stream. We all are here. We all are in this together. So feel free to share any, or even if you want to share any advice, any pointers, do drop it in the chat or any questions. Cool. Moving on. I think we talked about right from very beginning about defining the burnout, having sharing our personal experiences, maintaining that work-life balance, coming back, bouncing back, or recovering from that stage, and all of these things, setting boundaries, having that self-care uh, agenda on top of our mind. I think one of the other things that could be more effective and important for us is the support system, right? So, what are your thoughts on that? Maybe both in professional and personal life.
I think I was this close to interrupting you because I forgot a point that it's also really really important what kind of people you surround yourself with, and then how you stay connected with them. That's something that really helped me out because I luckily, and I'm so grateful for this, but I had amazing mentors who were very generous with their time, and who were also who were like they never shied away from telling me how much they believe in me, and they like have faith in the kind of person I am, the kind of work that I'm doing, and then where they see me going or like growing as a as a person, but also as a professional. That said, friends are also great mentors sometimes, and I had an amazing support system. My family has been very supportive throughout, and my friends have been very supportive throughout. Again, I've never been able to vocally talk a lot about this, but then whenever I showed signs that I needed help, they were always there to figure out what was wrong. And this sort of journey for me was like very iterative. It came in increments of realizations and increments of learnings and experiences, right? So I don't know. It's just the fact that I was surrounded with all of these people that had a lot of faith in me, and who constantly motivated me, but who were also just good listeners whenever they didn't know what to say or how to help or how to give advice on certain topics. They were just there for me to let me know that we can just like chill after work if we want, or we can have a conversation. They were the ones who actually made me feel more normal and, kind of like anchored to my personal life. And they were the ones to remind me of my humanity, that it's perfectly okay to not be capable of everything all at once. It's perfectly okay to not feel productive on days. It's perfectly okay to like feel really, really sleepy on really busy days. And just, having that support system is really important. And in difficult situations, a lot of us, we tend to isolate ourselves. We tend to, and I've done that as well. I've done everything, from mistakes to also something that I'm proud of in this entire journey. I have isolated people. I have given some really closed ones, loved ones, the cold treatment, because I didn't know how to navigate this. I didn't know how to interact with them without coming to a breaking point where I didn't know how to like communicate with them in a normal sense without exposing how terribly broken I felt on some days, right? So that was a fear of mine that I didn't want to deal with. And that's why I kind of like isolated myself for a long time. But then when I realized that that's something that was not healthy for me or healthy for anyone in general, but especially for me in that moment, I realized the importance of a support system. And so I'm glad that I had that at that time. And then it did, like help me a lot in my journey as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, like when you talked about having that right mentors with whom you can talk, because uh, I feel there have been situations where when we grow in our journeys, it's like we might have that one person or two-person that we share or we learn from, and talking to them on a daily basis, asking them questions about how do we grow in our career, at the same time making sure that we are communicating with them that how do we feel about it. Are we in a pressure situation? Are we doing so much more than what we can do actually? And all of these things, I think that kind of has helped me as well. I have those few person I always talk to, go and share about my career, about how am I doing with my work. And it's like very subjective in many cases, because not everyone might have the same background as yours. You might have different working culture, but at the same time they're here to listen to you, to give some common feedbacks or ground rules that one must keep in mind, and all of these things, I think. So that really helps. One more thing that I really wanted to put here was, like, I remember when I was having that stage of denial. I did not wanted to talk to many people because I always felt that no one will understand it because it's so personal. Not It might have not happened with others. All these things. Uh, but I think the first place that I could open up was with my family and parents. So I think a huge support system is just lying at your home, and you eventually do not realize it. It's just the matter of time that you break yourself towards them, and you share what you have been feeling. No doubt, many a times they might not have the same similar understanding of what you're going through. Let's say if professionally, but believe me, they have that experience of managing the kind of situation you might be in, and I think you can get a lot of thoughtful messages, and that feeling of acceptance which you are seeking for from them itself at first place. Of course there are friends, close friends you can talk with. Of course there are work colleagues that you are really close with that might be in a similar situation. Of course not every workplace is open enough to talk about these things. There are activities that are happening around. You can socialize with some strangers out there, and have a kind of similar sessions that you attend. There's therapy that you can take, and there's just so much more that you can explore and have that support system. Not necessary that support system is someone you might be knowing, or someone who is very close to you, but also someone very stranger to you. You might have not encountered them before in the life, and that can help you, because again, there's no experience in the past that they have had with you or you have had with them. So it's like a clean slate that you start with, and all these things. So I think those couple of things, if you can work around with, I think that can help you in some or the other way. Or if you have any support system that we are unaware of, or we should definitely try next time we are in this situation, feel free to drop that in the chat. I am saying as if we are going to attempt any other examinations in the futures. I hope that no one goes through this, but if you go through, of course, we should know how to come out of it. Uh, but yeah, apart from that, I believe there are like so much more to talk about, but I'm also keeping an eye on the timer. We are almost there on the time, but I would like to take this opportunity for bringing up questions from the chat. I see there's one from. Oh, that's what she said. That's what she said. It's like that. But I mean, the question is, what small things someone can do regularly which would help avoid burnout? That's an interesting one. Maybe Vishwa, would you like to go first?
Yeah, sure. That's a great question. Hi, Shritam. Thank you for being here and tuning into the conversation. That means a lot. Again, talking about the support system, I see a few friendly faces here, and so yeah, there we have it. We have our support system. But that's a great question. The reason why in the beginning of the the reason why in the beginning of the live stream itself I said that a lot of this will be like purely personal experience is because I'm still sorting so many things around it myself. Some days are really difficult and low and bad, and some days are amazing. So personally, I think what really helped me is one of the major reasons why I felt burnout was two things. I had a terrible work life balance, and that was my own doing. And then the second one was that I always felt this sort of like creative itch, because I tied a lot of my self worth to my job, and a lot of my intellectual gratification came from that job, or like the kind of work that I do as a professional. So I didn't feel like an amazing, witty, funny, creative person in my personal life. And that's something that I like to appreciate about people. So that's also something that I would love when someone would compliment me with, right? If someone would say, hey, I love your humor, you're super funny and you're hilarious, I'd actually feel like really flattered. And I realized that I didn't have those kind of interactions in my day to day life. I didn't create a room or a space for myself where I could become that creative, funny, quirky person who has a life outside of their work. So I that's what I did. The little thing that I would do every day is make sure that I talk to friends that made me laugh, and friends that I can make, like crack jokes with, and I can make them laugh, um, and do creative stuff with. It sort of like scratched my creative itch as well. So we would just take pottery classes together. We would go on car rides together, sing songs, and jam to our favorite music. So I think, again, going back to the support system, one little thing that you can or everybody can do every day is find what a small non-work thing they would like to do that brings them closer to the kind of person they are, the kind of human they are. If someone says, I'm a very creative person, find something creative. Maybe you would like to take that next painting class that is happening in your city, after work hours. If someone says, I love nature, then make sure that you go on an evening walk after your work hours or after you're done with all of your meetings, right? Take that break, even if it is between your work hours and you work later in the evening. Just take that break once you're done with all of your meetings. Do that. Give yourself that time. If someone says, I really love, like focusing on my fitness, and I'm a like a really healthy person. I love to talk about these things. I love to learn about these things. I love working out. Make sure that you're focusing on your health as well. You're focusing on your well-being. Like going to the gym to have like a workout session really quickly. I think these are the little things that bring you closer to who you are as a person and that remind you that you are not your job. Your profession is something that you created for yourself. It wasn't given to you, but your personality, your character is something that was given to you. It's who you are, right? Not something that you created for yourself. So identify those little things. For me personally, like learning something creative every now and then really helped. So after work, I would just either write something, read something, maybe sketch something. I would do a lot of journaling as well. I gifted my friends a lot of these little creative projects that I would spend time on. And that sort of made me feel like I have a life outside of, my work hours as well. And I think that should definitely help a lot.
Yeah, so true. And when it comes to small little things, I feel that there's just so much more. And what I usually do is, of course, I prefer to go out on weekends or have some time in the weekdays, and between the breaks of the work calls that I have, I just do what I wish like doing. At the same time, there's like, when it comes to very very really like small little things, for example, I just love sitting by my window watching outside. I have a cute little cat and dogs as pets. I just spend, even if 5-10 minutes with them, I do spend that. I would just go out on my terrace, just gaze the clouds, just gaze the birds, flying. For me, I think that really helps me, mm, calming myself. I would just go out and water the plants in the garden. I would just see birds eating the grains which we just gave them in the morning. All these things. I think that helps you distract yourself in a good way, and for a while you just forget about the work you have been doing, the stress you might have, because it's all about small little things, and then you realize that uh, the nature itself is there to teach you so many things, and then you realize that whatever you have been going through, whatever you have been facing, is just so small in front of all these things. Every day sun rises, it's a new beginning, and you have the equal opportunity to make yourself rise, maybe rise above burnout, and that's what the title is as well. And I think with that, I would like to conclude the conversation as well. uh, but yeah, before actually concluding, I'd just like to ask Vishwa to add some ending remarks for our audience and for everyone who's going to watch the recording. But yeah, that was it from this one.
Well, thank you so much for having me. And thank you so much, first of all, for creating a platform for conversations like these to happen. I think it's difficult sometimes and tricky to be honest, to, like openly talk about very, very personal experiences, but it's also really important. And I think it sort of, it sort of sets us up for being the models for other people and other young people to like have similar conversations amongst themselves or publicly. And I think that's a great thing to have. And last but not the least, I would love to thank all of the people in the chat, all of the listeners and our audience, for being patient but also being an active part of the conversation. I do see some of the comments being made that I'd love to get back to you on. So if you are on Twitter, maybe connect with me on Vishwa Mehta 30, and I'd love to chat more about it and hear about your experience. But yeah, thanks for having me again, and hope someone or hope everyone got to learn at least something or took away something from this.
Absolutely. Even like I personally had a lot of insights to gain, and I'm sure all our audience members will also have something to take away. Feel free to share about this live stream with your loved ones or with someone who might be going through the burnout, and maybe this can be uh, a source of example for them to consider. And of course, if you have any inputs, feel free to share with us. You can tweet about it and you can tag us online as well. But yeah, that was it. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining in. Thanks, Vishwa, for joining us with this particular live stream and sharing all your insights with this.
Thanks all. Bye.
Awesome. Cool. And everyone, with that, I think we are almost in the end of the last episode of Storyblok Community Chats. Having said that, we are going to come back with even more topics for 2024. Year end is almost there. So have a blast of the remaining days. Enjoy. Uh, just have the best of your time in these coming days. And of course, have a fantastic new year. If you have any inputs with the kind of topics you want to hear from us, if you have any suggestions, ideas, I'm all ears. You can always join us on Discord of Storyblok, and more than welcome to hear any ideas you might have for this one. But yeah, thank you so much for tuning in. The recording will be up on our YouTube soon. So you can, in case you missed out, feel free to check it out there as well. And all the past episodes that we have done, it's out there. And having said that, I will take a leave. Take care, enjoy, have a great weekend, and a very happy new year in advance. And for all of the folks tuning in late from EPAC region, have a good night as well. Take care, everyone, and bye.